Let's have a look now at the line d4, d5, bishop f4, knight f6, e3, and now c5. And this is actually a very logical move for black, because what he wants to do is bring his queen out to the b6 square, where it'll put pressure on this pawn on b2. And that would be quite annoying for white if he doesn't do something about it. Now, what white should do here is play c3, so that he's then ready to meet queen b6 with queen b3. And as is so often the case in the London, if black were to take this queen off, then a takes b3 gives white some annoying pressure down this a file. And there is actually a threat here of bishop takes b8 and then rook takes a7. So there's immediate problems for black there. So after queen b3, black does not normally take. He can play the immediate c4, which will be our main line. He can also bring his knight out to c6. Now, when he does that, white should play knight to d2. And now if black plays e6, then white can just continue with normal development with h3, bishop e7, knight gf3. Now all the time, if black takes this queen off, then white's going to take with a pawn. Don't be tempted to take with the knight. Taking with the pawn is good. Although it's doubled pawns, this open a file is a more important factor there. So after knight gf3, castles. Now you don't want to play bishop d3 here, because then c4 will force white to take on b6, and then black has got the pressure on the half open a file. So what you would do in this situation is just put the bishop on e2, so that then after c4 you can drop the queen back to c2 and play your pawn forward to b3 to undermine black's pawn chain. Now when you do that, let's say black were to play bishop d7 and white then played the immediate b3. You don't have to do it straight away. When black takes, then white will recapture with the pawn and have one pawn island against black's two. And I think that's enough to give him a small advantage. Now let's go back, and we'll go back to knight c6, knight d2. Now if black here plays the move g6, this has got quite a clever idea to follow up with c4, and after queen c2 go bishop f5. So white needs to watch out for this plan of c4 and bishop f5. And for this reason, Ponomaryov, in a game against Wróblewski in Warsaw 2010, decided to exchange queens straight away and then embarrass black with this move bishop c7. Now the attack on the b pawn needs to be defended against, and black can't play rook a6 because of this bishop on f1. So what he would have to do is drop his knight back to d7, which is not really very comfortable. He doesn't want to undevelop that knight. Then white in the game played bishop b5, and after bishop g7 he went knight gf3. Black castled, white also castled, and black played rook e8. White went rook fe1, and now he's got the idea of possibly playing e4 in certain circumstances. So black decided to rule that out by going f5, and then white played a3, black went e6, white went h3, and probably white had a slightly more comfortable endgame here. He was pressing a little bit in the game. Black made a draw, but white's got, I think, a little bit of pressure here. He's got the more comfortable game, and if you play 2 bishop f4, that should be enough for you. You know, we're not looking to rip black limb from limb by playing bishop f4. We want a playable opening which gives some chances of an edge, and here's our small advantage in an endgame. Anyway, if we go back, so let's take it right from the top: d4, d5, bishop f4, knight f6, e3, c5, c3, queen b6, queen b3. Let's look at this move c4. And now white doesn't want to take, because then black would get this half open a file, and he might be trying to play b5 and even b4 soon if we're not careful. So white will not take. He has to drop back to c2 if he wants to get something, and then black can play g6, intending to bring his bishop out to the f5 square. Well, what white should do against that is probably just knight d2, and then after bishop f5 he can play queen c1. Now what white's plan is here basically is to undermine black's pawns at the right moment with b3, and then when black takes with his c pawn, white again can boast that he's got this single pawn island against black's two pawn islands. So we'll follow a game between Condi and Muir from St Andrews 1989, in which black now played knight h5, white played bishop e5, black went f6, and white now took on b8, rook takes b8, and he played bishop e2, which is actually a bit annoying for black. This knight, of course, is attacked, and black now went bishop d7, and white didn't take the knight. Instead he played bishop f3 to attack this pawn on d5, and his idea right now is basically to develop his pieces, knight e2, bishop d6. But here we come to a key moment in which white is able to play this move, pawn to b3. And once again, when black takes it, white's going to recapture the a pawn and claim to have an edge because of his more homogeneous pawn structure. This is not one nice pawn island against black's two split islands. Now I know black's got the bishop pair, but we're not going to worry about that too much. A possible plan for white in this kind of position is to play his pawn to b4 and then bring a knight to b3 and c5, so that would be quite a good idea. Another plan might be to play e4, and there may be a good opportunity to take on h5. I think he didn't particularly like that earlier, but that doesn't mean we're going to rule it out. So after the move b3, black played queen c7, white took on c4, black recaptured with a d-pawn, and now white played his knight to e4. And then this bishop came back one square because he wants to hang on to his bishops. But now white saw a good opportunity to take on h5, and after gh played his knight out to f4. And white now was getting a very good game. I know he's got two knights against two bishops, but black's pawns are looking quite ragged now, and it's not clear at all where this black king is going to go, because he's not going to be able to castle queenside through moving this rook. The king side is looking not very safe because he's gone g takes h5, and of course it's very difficult to leave your king in the centre over the long term. So I think here white has got the better game, and in fact he went on to win.